Deep in the Nevada desert, in the early morning darkness before dawn, the massive silhouette of an American B-52 Stratofortress rumbles down the runway. Its 8 engines roar with the power of a freight train, leaving a trail of heat that shimmers across the tarmac like molten steel. This 70-year-old aircraft, still the backbone of America's strategic bombing force, carries a secret that keeps Russian military planners awake at night. It's not the bomber itself, it's what it can do, and more importantly, what the Russians simply cannot stop. This is the story of how American air superiority doctrine has evolved into something so overwhelmingly dominant that Moscow's most air defenses find themselves completely outmatched. This is the story of saturation warfare, and it represents the most significant tactical advantage America holds over any potential adversary on Earth. When most people think about modern warfare, they imagine fighter jets locked in dogfights, their pilots pulling impossible maneuvers at supersonic speeds. But the reality of 21st century air combat is far different and infinitely more sophisticated. The true masters of the skies are the heavy bombers, the strategic weapons platforms that can strike anywhere on the globe from the safety of the continental United States. And the United States has the thing that Russia can only dream about: a doctrine, a strategy, and a technological edge so comprehensive that it essentially guarantees American victory in any large-scale military conflict. Let's start with the fundamental problem that keeps Russian generals awake in Moscow. Russia has invested billions of rubles into their most advanced surface-to-air missile systems, the S-400 and the newer S-500. These are genuinely formidable weapons systems, mobile platforms that can supposedly detect stealth aircraft from hundreds of miles away and engage multiple targets simultaneously. The Russian propaganda machine works overtime promoting these systems, claiming they can shoot down anything America has to offer: the F-22, the F-35, the B-52 Spirit stealth bomber. Russian generals boast about their capabilities. Russian state media runs constant headlines about how these systems render American stealth technology obsolete. But here's the thing that really matters: none of it is true, and Russia knows it. The fundamental weakness in the Russian defense model is something called the saturation attack, and it's been refined by American military strategists into an art form. This isn't some complicated high-tech trick. It's actually breathtakingly simple in its elegance. The concept is this: rather than trying to sneak bombers through enemy airspace like thieves in the night, or relying on stealth technology to avoid detection entirely, the United States has developed a strategy that does something far more clever. It overwhelms enemy defenses so completely that it doesn't matter if they detect you or not. It doesn't matter if they lock onto you, because even if they do, they can't stop what's coming. Picture this scenario in the opening moments of a hypothetical conflict. An American bomber force is staged at bases in Europe, the Middle East, or the Pacific. A flight of B-52 Stratofortress bombers, perhaps operating from Heath in England or from Al Udeid in Qatar, receives the order to proceed toward their target deep in Russian territory. The mission parameters are already programmed into their systems. The target, wherever it may be, a command center, a military installation, a strategic infrastructure facility, is locked into their navigation systems. Now here's where it gets interesting. These bombers don't have to penetrate enemy airspace. They don't have to get close to their targets at all. In fact, staying alive is much easier if they stay far away. A B-52 can launch a cruise missile from a distance of 500 to 800 nautical miles from its target. That's roughly the distance from New York to Atlanta. From that standoff distance, the bomber is essentially in a safe zone. Russian fighters cannot reach them. Russian air defense systems, even the most advanced S-400s and S-500s, need to defend the territory within their range. But here's the critical part: a single B-52 can carry up to 20 cruise missiles, and a typical strike package consists of multiple bombers. We're not talking about a handful of missiles. We're talking about dozens, sometimes hundreds of cruise missiles heading toward Russian air defenses simultaneously. Let's do the math here, because the numbers are absolutely devastating for Russia. Assume 2 squadrons of B-52s, which would be roughly 20 bombers. Each can carry 20 missiles. That's 400 cruise missiles potentially headed toward Russian territory. Now imagine that these missiles are coordinated in a concentrated attack, all arriving at their targets within minutes of each other. Russian air defense systems, even in the best-case scenario, can only engage a limited number of targets simultaneously. An S-400 battery might be able to launch 4 missiles at a time, an S-500 battery perhaps a few more. But the sheer mathematical impossibility becomes obvious immediately. Russia simply does not have enough defensive missiles to handle this kind of saturation attack. This is not theoretical anymore. The American military has tested this doctrine repeatedly, and the results consistently demonstrate Russian air defenses' fundamental fundamental vulnerability to saturation tactics. In June 2025, the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber, America's most advanced strategic weapon, conducted strikes against Iranian nuclear facilities. That operation wasn't just a military exercise, it was a demonstration of American air power that rippled through every military establishment in the world. Critically, the operation used the exact tactic we're discussing, a combined approach utilizing stealth technology and saturation attacks, overwhelming enemy air defenses through sheer volume and coordination. The results sent an unmistakable message to Moscow. American air dominance is absolute and unquestionable. Now let's talk about the specific technology that makes this strategy so effective. American cruise missiles have evolved far beyond what existed even a decade ago. The ALCMB, the long-range standoff missile used by B-52s, has been continuously upgraded. Modern variants feature sophisticated guidance systems that make them incredibly difficult to intercept. But more importantly, they're designed to work in coordination with each other and with electronic warfare assets. When these missiles are launched, they're not operating independently. They're part of a coordinated network, with each missile's trajectory and timing calculated to maximize the strain on enemy defenses. Consider the geometry of a typical saturation attack. Missiles are launched at different altitudes. They approach targets from multiple vectors. Some fly at high altitude, others at low altitude, making it impossible for air defense systems to create a unified defensive picture. At the same time, electronic warfare aircraft, could be an EA-18 Gigor, could be an EC-130 Compass Call, are jamming Russian radar systems, degrading their ability to track incoming threats. This is where the truly devastating part comes in. Russia doesn't just have to shoot down the missiles. They have to do it while being electronically blinded, while their radars are being jammed, while they're trying to distinguish between real targets and decoys. And about those decoys, this is another aspect that makes American doctrine so frighteningly effective. When a B-52 launches a cruise missile, it might also be deploying expendable decoys, electronic countermeasures, and chaff dispensers, creating a cloud of false targets. From a radar perspective, the air defender sees not one missile but dozens. They don't know which one is real. They might launch 10 interceptor missiles only to discover that 9 of them hit decoys, while the real missile continues to its target. Now multiply that confusion across an entire defensive network with hundreds of missiles incoming. The Russians have tried to counter these tactics, of course. They've invested heavily in their S-500 system, which they claim can detect and engage stealth aircraft and hypersonic missiles. They've supposedly developed new radar technologies that can supposedly penetrate American stealth technologies. They've conducted joint exercises with China to develop tactics to counter American air power, but none of it has changed the fundamental calculus. One Russian military analyst, speaking anonymously with obvious frustration, acknowledged that Russia simply cannot build enough air defense systems to match what America is capable of deploying. That's not an American military official saying that. That's a Russian analyst admitting the reality of the situation. There's another dimension to American air superiority that makes the tactical picture even more one-sided. The United States doesn't just have bombers. The B-52s are just one tool in an arsenal vast that Russia would need to be prepared for simultaneous threats from multiple directions. Attack submarines lurking beneath the waves can launch cruise missiles from underwater position Russia can't even monitor. Long-range fighter jets like the F-15E Strike Eagle and the F-16 Fighting Falcon can be deployed to forward bases and conduct their own strikes. Carrier strike groups sailing in international waters can launch Tomahawk missiles without ever entering hostile airspace. Meanwhile, the newest addition to America's bomber fleet, the B-21 Raider, is a stealth aircraft so advanced that it essentially makes current Russian air defense systems completely irrelevant. The B-21 Raider represents a generational leap in American military technology. This aircraft combines stealth technology, even more advanced than the B-2 Spirit, with networking capabilities that allow it to operate as part of a coordinated swarm of aircraft and missiles. A single B-21 is harder to detect and track than a B-2, and when you're talking about employing multiple B-21s in coordination with bombers and fighters, you're talking about a military problem that Russia quite literally has no solution for. Russian military officials have made comments acknowledging that they simply don't know how to defend against the B-21. That's not hyperbole. That's a statement of fact from the Russian Ministry of Defense. But perhaps the most important advantage America possesses isn't technological at all. It's doctrinal. It's the way American military strategists have learned to think about air warfare. The doctrine of agile combat employment, or ACE, represents a fundamental shift in how the Air Force deploys and operates its forces. Rather than massing fighters and bombers at a few large, vulnerable bases that Russia can target, target. The Air Force distributes its forces across many small airfields, rotating them frequently, making it almost impossible for Russia to ever gain any advantage through preemptive strikes. A single B-52 can be flying from a different base each day, refueling mid-air from KC-135 tankers that themselves are distributed across multiple locations. The Russians literally cannot track where American bombers are, let alone mount an effective defense against them. The reality of modern air warfare between the United States and any potential adversary is that the war would be essentially decided within the first 72 hours of conflict. American bombers and missiles would degrade Russian air defenses so thoroughly that, by day 4, American aircraft would essentially have free reign over any airspace they chose to operate in. Russia would have no viable way to defend its territory. This isn't American military propaganda. This is the conclusion of independent military analysts, defense think tanks, and even Russian military planners themselves. What's particularly interesting is how the saturation attack doctrine has forced Russia into an impossible strategic position. Russia has limited resources. They cannot match American military spending. They cannot match American technological capability. Their attempt to counter American air power by building more air defense systems doesn't actually work, because you can't build enough air defense missiles to defend against saturation attacks. It's like trying to defend a city by building taller and taller walls. At some point, an attacker with unlimited resources and superior technology can simply go over the walls, around the walls, or build bigger weapons than the walls are tall. Russia has chosen to build walls, more S-400s, more S-500, more aircraft that are increasingly obsolete compared to what America had. Meanwhile, America just keeps building newer, better weapons that continue to redefine air superiority. Let's examine some specific scenarios where this doctrine has been proven in practice. In conflicts in the Middle East, American bombers have consistently demonstrated their ability to operate in contested airspace and strike their targets with impunity. Against less sophisticated air defense systems than Russia possesses, American bombers achieve perfect or near-perfect mission success rates. When you extrapolate that to Russia, which does possess more sophisticated air defenses than in any country except perhaps China, the question becomes, if American bombers can do this against quality opposition, how would they fare against an adversary that's actually behind the curve technologically? The answer is that Russia would be completely overwhelmed. Consider the psychological dimension of this as well. Russian military planners know all of this. They understand the mathematics. They understand that they don't have a viable defense against saturation attacks. This creates a strategic paralysis. How do you conduct a war when you know that your home territory is essentially indefensible? How do you plan operations when you know that at any moment your command centers could be destroyed, your air bases could be devastated, your supply lines could be cut? This is the reality that sits at the core of Russian military strategy, and it's the reason why Russian aggression has been limited to conflicts with neighbors who lack air defense systems. The B-52 Stratofortress, despite being over 70 years old, embodies this American technological and strategic dominance. This aircraft has been continuously upgraded with new engines, new avionics, new weapons systems. The latest variants can carry a wider variety of weapons and have better range and payload capacity than aircraft half their age. The B-52 exists in this interesting space where it's simultaneously one of the oldest aircraft in the world and one of the most capable. American planners have invested in maintaining this aircraft not out of nostalgia or tradition, but because even now the B-52 represents excellent value. You can keep it flying, keep upgrading it, and it remains a remarkably effective weapon system. More significantly, the B-52 will be flying well into the 2050s. By the time the last B-52 is retired, there will likely be B-21 Raiders flying alongside them, potentially joined by a next-generation stealth bomber that American planners are already beginning to think about. This isn't a static advantage. This is a continuously evolving technological and strategic dominance that Russia simply cannot match. Every dollar Russia spends on air defense is a dollar they're not spending on offense, healthcare, or economic development. Every missile they build for their S-500 system is a missile that doesn't exist to threaten American interests elsewhere in the world. The saturation attack doctrine has also revealed something critical about the nature of modern strategic defense. It doesn't matter how good your individual air defense systems if you don't have enough of them. It doesn't matter if each system can theoretically shoot down multiple targets if the number of targets arriving simultaneously is orders of magnitude greater than your defensive capability. This is a fundamental mathematical problem that no amount of technological innovation can solve. You cannot build your way out of this problem if your adversary has unlimited resources and continued technological technological advancement. American military strategists have essentially weaponized economics. The United States spends more on defense than Russia, China, and everyone else combined. That spending advantage translates into technological superiority. The saturation attack doctrine takes that technological superiority and multiplies its effectiveness through coordination and volume. Russia is left in an impossible position. They cannot match American spending, they cannot keep pace with American technology, and they cannot defend against American tactics. The proof of this doctrine's effectiveness isn't just theoretical. It's been demonstrated repeatedly in real-world scenarios. In the conflicts of the 2020s and into 2025, American bombers have shown an ability to operate in contested airspace and achieve their objectives. Every time a B-52 successfully executes a mission, every time a B-2 Spirit Striker completes a bombing run unscathed, every time American cruise missiles find their targets while enemy air defenses fail to stop them, it reinforces this fundamental reality. American air dominance is absolute. Russia's military planners understand this, and it's their entire strategic doctrine. This is why Russia focuses so heavily on cyber warfare, on asymmetric attacks, on trying to win through means other than conventional military superiority. Because in conventional military terms, particularly in air warfare, Russia is hopelessly outmatched. They know it. American military planners know it. And increasingly, the world's it as well. The technological gap is widening, not narrowing. The B-21 Raider represents the next evolutionary step in American bomber capabilities. This aircraft features stealth technology that makes the B-2 Spirit look primitive by comparison. It features networking capabilities that allow it to coordinate with other aircraft and weapons systems in ways that create a seamless web of lethality. When the B-21 reaches full operational capability and begins flying operational missions, it will represent yet another generational shift in air superiority. Russia will have no answer for it. They're already admitting this. The saturation attack doctrine has essentially solved the problem of air defense. For decades, strategists worried that advanced surface-to-air missile systems would make air operations prohibitively difficult or impossible. The S-300, the S-400, the S-500, these systems were built specifically to counter American air power. But American military innovation found a way around this problem. Not through stealth alone, but through coordination, through saturation, through overwhelming enemy defenses with volume and complexity. The doctrine says, if you can't sneak in, if you can't evade detection, then don't bother trying. Instead, just bring so many missiles that the enemy simply cannot stop all of them. This is the ultimate expression of American air power doctrine in the modern era. It's not about having the best individual aircraft or the most advanced stealth technology, though America has both. It's about the entire system, the bombers, the tankers, the command and control systems, the electronic warfare aircraft, the cruise missiles, the coordination, the logistics, and the sheer volume of military capability that can be brought to bear simultaneously. Russia cannot match this. Russia has no answer for it, and Russia knows it. The strategic implications of this are enormous as long as America maintains this level of air superiority. Any conventional conflict with Russia would be decided very quickly and very decisively in America's favor. Russia cannot invade NATO. Russia cannot conduct large-scale military operations against American forces. Russia cannot even defend its own territory against American air attacks. This is why Russia's strategy is to avoid direct confrontation with the United States and instead focus on conflicts at the periphery with weaker opponents, on cyber warfare, and on attempts to exploit political divisions within America and the West. The saturation attack doctrine, combined with American technological superiority, represents the most complete military dominance in human history. Never before has one nation been so thoroughly superior in one domain that it's essentially unchallengeable. Rome at the height of the empire didn't have this degree of superiority. The British Empire at its height didn't have this degree of superiority. The United States today possesses an air power capability that is so far ahead of any potential adversary that it's almost not a competition. Russia's military planners are keenly aware of this reality. They understand they have lost the arms race in air power. They have lost the technological competition. They have lost the ability to defend their own territory against a determined American air campaign. This realization shapes everything they do. It's why they don't challenge America directly. It's why proxy wars. It's why they focus on hybrid warfare and cyber attacks. Because in the one domain where America is completely and utterly dominant, air warfare, Russia is completely and utterly helpless. The saturation attack doctrine is the answer to every Russian air defense system ever built. No matter how many S-400s or S-500s Russia deploys, no matter how advanced their radar systems become, no matter how many interceptor missiles they manufacture, the fundamental mathematics remain remain unchanged. You cannot defend against saturation attacks if you don't have enough defensive resources. And Russia will never have enough resources to defend against what America is capable of throwing at them. This is the future of military conflict in the 21st century. This is what American air superiority looks like when fully realized. This is why Russia has no answer, no counter, and no viable defense strategy against American bomber tactics. And this is why, barring some catastrophic collapse of American military capability, some equally dramatic technological breakthrough by Russia, American air dominance will remain absolute and unquestionable for the foreseeable future.